Alright, adventurers, sometimes our players' actions within the roleplay sphere demand consequences, maybe even going as far as punishments for what they have done. But how do you go about it, and what is going too far? Well, let's get into this. Yes, 'tis I, Nathaniel Gomezian, shopkeeper proprietor of Gaming Treasure. As I said, in today's video, we're going to be going through consequences and the way that you go about putting them in front of your players for the actions that they have done. And the main reason that I'm making this video is because I recently read a Reddit post, one of those kind of am I the asshole post kind of things from the DM's perspective. It's very annoying that I cannot actually find this post again, because I was going to link it down in the comment section down below so you guys could read it for yourselves and come up with your own conclusions. But when I've gone back, I can't find it either. It's hidden away somewhere, that there's just too many things that I can't scroll down and find it, or it's been deleted. I don't know which way it is. But the basic outline of the Reddit post was that the party had done some things with a shady group kind of thing. It kind of annoyed them, like a group of gangsters or something along those lines, and had annoyed them. Now what happened is when the group came back to their homestead, one of the party members basically found their wife dead on the floor, and it was like with a note or something like that. Basically, retribution from the gang, and this is what happened. It really upset the player. Now, we don't obviously know what happened in session 0, what was agreed to, what wasn't agreed to, because some people have like a firm lines of like, okay, right, you not include anything like a death of a family or anything like that, because maybe it might be too much of a sensitive subject for them. But let's just go with the assumption that everything was on the table and that this was allowed kind of thing. And what happened is that the player got really upset, and apparently as sessions and sessions went on, they tried to basically rewrite history as to say that their wife was not killed in this situation, and that made the DM very upset, and the whole group kind of blew up from there. But here's the thing, for me, going after the wife was not the issue here. For me, it was the way that they went about the consequence. Now, yes, you've pissed off the group, but let's actually give the player a way of deciding what's going on with the consequences here. What do I mean by this? Well, you could have done several things. You could have kidnapped the wife by the group and left a ransom note. You need to pay this much, or you've got to do this mission, otherwise we're going to kill your wife. Basically, this gangster group has taken the wife, and the player character and the party have to work together to, as I said, either come up with the money for the ransom or do a mission or whatnot. That's probably going to put them in bad stead, because it's probably, let's face it, going to be dodgy, but it is in order to get this character's wife back. Now, the decision is now at their hands. Do they go along with this mission? Do they try to fault it and basically go like, okay, there's a timeline of we've got to get this completed by here, but if we go against the group and try and find out where she's hidden, blah, 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 blah. Or if the party members do nothing, they've been given a strict deadline of, you've got this much time, otherwise we're going to kill your wife, and if they do nothing, then the wife dies. But what you have done is you've given the players the decision as to what happens here with this consequence, in terms of like, will the wife die or won't they? It is completely in their hands, and like I said, you can go down to a whole combat situation if they try to rescue the wife, in terms of like maybe she's been held hostage, blah, 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 and then that can go down within roles to see what happens, whether or not the wife dies there. But the players actually had some kind of input into what's happened here. Them just turning up and coming home and finding their wife dead with literally nothing that they could do about the situation, that's not fun. And I can understand why the player got frustrated in that situation. I can also understand the DM's point of view, is that they wanted to put a meaningful consequence in front of the player for like annoying this group. But as I said, I feel like they went about it the wrong way, because like they just went immediately with, she's dead, there's nothing you can do about it. Now, I know that some people might be saying, oh, well, they could just resurrect her. Yeah, sure. Potentially they could, but it depends on what the setting and what the resurrection rules within that game is. Because while people just think, oh, it's just simple, like find a cleric, 300 gems, and she's going to be back up again. That's not necessarily true for every single game, because I know personally I go more down the critical role aspect of things. When it comes to resurrection, it actually comes down to a role, not just the fact that you are casting the spell to resurrect somebody. And obviously there's things that you can do to improve that role, in terms of like, bringing mementos and such, or things that different people do. Like if I think that it's enough like to kind of try to help get the spirit back into the body, then I would accept it and lower the DC. But it still comes down to an additional role, not just as simple as, you're back in the room kind of thing. And I personally like to do that because it adds more effect when it comes to dying, that it's not just instantly getting back up again. There is actually meaning, because if everyone could just be resurrected instantly with no problem, then death kind of no longer seems to have like any impact in the world. So kind of think like Dragon Ball Z, we just wish them back and everything's fine. Admittedly, Dragon Ball Z then I think changed the rules so that you can only be wished back a certain amount of times. But anyway, the point is that without death, there is no meaning, and therefore that's the reason why some DMs don't actually just have it as being as easy. So just saying, oh, you can just resurrect the wife, it's fine. Maybe it's not as easy as that in that game. Of course, the kidnapping is just one route that you could go down. There are several routes that you could go down. There's another kind of thing that you could do is maybe when they come home, they find that there is actually an assassin in there with his wife with a knife to her throat, and he does a little cut. It's not actually to cut her throat. It turns out that the blade is poisoned and basically says, for disrespecting the group, your wife is gonna die a slow, painful death. She has 3 days, and basically then they can leave in some kind of dramatic fashion. And it's then in the player's perspective in terms of, oh no, what do I do? My wife's been poisoned. Tried to find an alchemist, a herbalist, somewhere been able to find an antidote, and that can become a quest line in itself, because maybe the antidote is a really hard to find thing, blah, 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 blah. But still, you're putting the outcome in the player's kind of decision-making things, and not just instantly go, she's dead, you can't do anything, Because as I said, that's not fun. It is a collaborative storytelling thing. You're not writing a book. This is a kind of trap that most DMs kind of fall into, is that sometimes they do feel like they're writing a book, and that sometimes the player's actions go against that. It's a collaborative thing, and it's all about having fun and that within that collaboration. And so I said, I can understand this story from both ways, why the DM's upset and why the player's upset. But yeah, there's definitely ways to go about it. That's why consequences and how you introduce them should be along the lines of you're still letting the players make the decisions and not just making the consequence like a hard line. I'm not saying you've got to do this with every single consequence that you do. Sometimes you can put hard line ones, but when it comes to things where it's like family members, party members, favorite NPCs, things which are actually of value to the group and party, then you kind of have to give them a little bit more than they're just dead. You have to give them a decision whereby it's actually kind of the onus is on them for which way this goes. Because, as I said, straight up just deciding what happens for your players without their input, to me, that's going too far. It's immediately dead and there's nothing you can do about it. That is too far of a consequence for me. Allowing them still to be able to resolve the situation and come up with something is more fun, and it is, yet again, I said, just throwing that to the players to go, this is what's happened, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to react to this kind of thing? And so that's the way that I prefer to do consequences. Obviously, depending on how your players are interacting with the world is going to depend on how the world interacts with them. What I mean by that in terms of consequences is if you've got a group of murder hobos who are literally going around killing people left and right, innocent people, shopkeepers, whoever, innkeepers, well then that's going to spill out into the world in terms of they're going to gain a reputation. And maybe when they start going to towns, they get turned away, or the guards are like, no, there's faces of them with wanted posters because of the devastation that they have caused elsewhere. The world is more kind of reacting to what they have done and deciding no, and potentially even hiring hitmen or groups of hitmen to go after and try to kill them because of recompense as to what actions they have done. As I said, their decisions, and that the world will react for that. But obviously it's the deciding what is going too far and what is not that is the hard minutiae of being a dungeon master. And at the end of the day, I feel like sometimes you need to make the absolute consequence come down to what the players' decisions are. They can still potentially come back from being murder hobos if they do a whole kind of redemption arc of trying to do nice things to gain favor with people, blah, 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 blah. Or maybe they just embrace evil and go down a whole kind of evil campaign. That's another way that they can go about things. As I said, depends on what the group wants to do. But I feel the consequences of their actions do need to have some kind of input from them, and not it just being a straightforward we've killed all your family, we've killed all your friends, there's nothing you can do about it, that's set in stone now. But maybe that's just my opinion. Let me know down in the comment section down below, has this ever happened to you in your games, in terms of a game that you've been DMing or a game that you've been a player at, whereby decisions were taken out of your hand by the DM, or is it that consequences went too far? Let me know, because I'd love to hear your stories down in in the comment section down below, as well as obviously, if you enjoyed watching this video and want to see more things like it, then please consider subscribing to the channel, because like, you know, I make D&D content every week, and if you like this video, you might like some of the other stuff I make as well. There's the Patreon. If you want to help support the channel, you don't actually even need to go on the paid tier to get access to some of like the resources and that. There are free resources for just becoming a free member, like the cursed items that we did a couple of weeks ago. There are STLs for you 3D printers out there that you can just like use for free and such like that, as well as obviously, as I said, different puzzles and that we've done down the past. There are links to different things, resources that can help with that. So you can get all that for free if you want to join as a free member. Don't feel forced. But again, if you do want to support the channel financially, then why not head over to the Etsy store of Gaming Treasure Chest, where all the items on there have been designed by me, and I will 3D print and send to you. So there's a gift you want to give to your Dungeon Master or to your players, please consider checking that out. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a good time. And until next time, goodbye.